Hello, everybody. You have reached the channel called High Voltage, and I am your host, Lasha Royenko, and we are reading the book Ask Not. 2 days ago, I did a live on Kick Kennedy, and this was Joe and his wife, Rose, their daughter. Now, what boggled my mind about the chapter is that she was dating a man named Billy, whom her father didn't approve of. Then she met an Englishman, and his last name was Killsworth. It was it was a royal friend of Thomas Townsend, whom Margaret, Queen Elizabeth's younger sister, was not allowed to marry because he was divorced. That's why Margaret didn't marry the man she loved. And the Queen, Elizabeth, denied her of that. Kit Kennedy was not fond of the Queen and said things such as, "Her smile is sweet and phony, and she's fatter than she looks like in real life." So while Kik was philandering around in England, hanging around with the aristocrats, she died in a plane crash. It took me 3 days to read this chapter. I can't read it again. It was up on the live for 2 days, and then it disappeared. Just like Trevor and our live disappeared when Sarah was on, but now it's up again. So I just wanted to leave you with the very last paragraph of Kick Kennedy. Hotel George V. Paris, May 14th, 1948. No one ever knew her. She didn't feel that life was much better than minute to minute. And probably we know so little about the next world that we must think that they wanted just such a wonderful girl for themselves. We must not feel sorry for her, but for ourselves. File JPK on Kick. Written by me half hour after being notified of Kick's death. The Kennedys made no arrangement to bring Kick's body home. Her in-laws, with whom she had still been living at the time, offered to bury Kick in their own family plot. Joe agreed and was the only Kennedy to attend Kick's funeral. Jack was too distraught. Rose took to Kick's death as proof that she had been right. God had struck down her daughter, the sinner, the sexual savage. Rose flat out refused to attend Kick's funeral and said Kick would be denied heaven and stuck in purgatory. Wow. Well, wait till we find out what happened. Well, everybody knows that Joe and Rose had their daughter, Rose, lobotomized and thrown in an institution and forgotten. Kick's funeral, so Rose wouldn't attend because she would be struck down and in purgatory. Lem Billings was perhaps the only non-Kennedy to know Rose's true feelings. For her, he said, that plane crash was God pointing his finger at Kick and saying no. Did they read the First Testament or the Second Testament? Like, did they read the Handmaid's Tale Testament that women can't write? And really? Okay. Kik was buried alone in an English countryside. Her gravestone reads, "In loving memory of Kathleen, 1920 to 1948, passed away at 28 years old in a plane crash. She was given no last name." Isn't that gross? Gross. What I wanted to do in the last video was review JFK Jr., Jackie Bouvier, Marilyn Monroe, Jack Kennedy, Mary and Diane, Joe Pesci, or Mary Jo. But right now, we're at part 5, Ted's Blondes from Ask Not. Mary Jo Pesci. Here we are, Ted's Blondes. He got away with literal, can I say this online? The M word? Okay. Mary Jo Pesci. If you're reading the book with me, we're on page 105. I told you I am not a literary student. I am not a professional book reviewer. I am practicing, and I am going to get better and better and better because I want to learn when I watch a YouTube channel and be entertained. And my channel is like more of a social channel. It's lots of fun. However, there are some serious subjects that I want to talk about. At any rate, Mary Jo Pesci, he didn't even know how to spell her last name. While he stood behind Police Chief Jim Arena's desk, to Arena's surprise, Ted Kennedy was already running this investigation, making calls on his phone. He struggled to formally identify the young woman who he had left in the car, which the night before, a car he'd left upside down in 3 feet of water. Okay, I didn't know it was 3 feet of water. After careening off a bridge. Her name was Mary Jo. Ted could pronounce her last name, kind of, but he didn't know how to spell Kopechne. See, Kopchene. Yeah, I was right. Ted, in writing out his statement, just left that part blank. Now, they were called the Boiler Room Girls. And Mary Jo and a bunch of other girls went to Chippewana. I can never pronounce that little island. And they had a party. And Ted covered this up, I believe, because they could have been having an affair, but everybody said, oh no, she was a good girl. Well, look at his brothers. Look at Jack. Look at Bobby. Look at what happened to Marilyn Monroe. And he left her in 3 feet of water and couldn't get help? I mean, I don't care what his excuses are. God rest his soul. God forgive him. I am trying so hard to follow what I believe in, which is welcoming and respecting aspects of all people's societies, because there are different societies in this world, from the Kennedys to where I used to be, to where I am now, to people who have lived in jail, to very severe ways. I've met people who have, without saying it, people who do not respect themselves treat themselves certain ways because of trauma. I'm even sick of those excuses, and all I talked about was my trauma for 8 months. Anyways, it was important, really. Ted knew the name of other police officers or administrative clerks, would figure it out and fill it in. He had one other equally pressing question for Chief Arena. Would he go back down to the pond? Ted wanted to be sure that his black Chevy got out and cleaned okay. Oh, I didn't know that part. I mean, I've read this book, but I forgot that, or else I skipped Ted. The news reports to follow would only prove Ted right. In headline after headline, this would be called Ted's accident. An accident, yes. Let's leave a girl in a car and swim across shore and then go to a hotel. Somebody saw you go into the hotel at 2 a.m., but then you go out to make it look like you weren't at the island. Well, as Kelly Preston said to Jerry Maguire, or Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire, who played Jerry Maguire, and I don't even like Tom Cruise, but he is a good actor. Loser. Ted, the wife, Jackie, JFK. What the hell? Oh no. Yeah, they had both. Ted had also lost both of his brothers by then by assassination. My question is, why did Bobby not have bodyguards in the hotel? Okay. Decades later, even into the new millennium, historians and journalists and would call this scandal the callous disregard for human life, not by the dead woman's name, but by its location, Chappaquiddick. Chappaquiddick, Chappaquiddick, Chappaquiddick. I remember now, a small Massachusetts island in the coast of Martha's Vineyard. Right, where JFK Jr. needed to go with Carolyn and the sister, and if Carolyn and the sister had followed their intuition, they would still be alive. JFK Jr. did not care who he put into harm's way. Ted Kennedy did not care who he put in harm's way. Jackie didn't even care who she put in harm's way sometimes. Carolyn Bessette sure didn't care. I'm telling you from my perspective, and I want to know what you think. These people sound all so readily involved with themselves. Imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger marrying into the Kennedy family. Arnold, I mean, I can hardly listen to him talk. Sorry, I forget Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. Anyways, before Ted calmly reported himself to Arena that morning, he had first called Mary Jo's parents. Oh, wasn't that nice of him? Oh, Ted, you are so mannerly. Let's just call them instead of going to visit them, you chicken. He had first called Mary Jo's parents. It was Saturday, July the 19th, 1969. Wasn't that close to a day before the moon landing? Oh, that's how he got out of it. You need to watch Chippequoddick or whatever. Chippequoddick. Hi, Sophie. Because that's exactly what happened. They used the moon landing to deflect on what was really going on. Seeing as Bill Clinton, his hero was JFK Kennedy. And look at what the Clintons have done. Okay. A momentous week for the Kennedys, the American astronauts. This is why I always say hashtag astronauts, hashtag astronaut. The 3 American astronauts were hurtling toward the moon, a seemingly impossible goal set forth by, at that point, the late JFK in his 1961 inaugural address. If they survived, they would land on the moon's surface shortly before 11 p.m. that night. The eyes of the world were glued like live broadcasts, with 53 million Americans watching, if you could afford a television back then. The goings on at some tiny shack on Martha's Vineyard were at this moment inconsequential. I just said that. I need to give myself credit for my critical free thinking. Mary Jo's mother, Gwen, answered the phone. Ted wanted to talk to her husband instead. Joe Kopechny wasn't home, but no matter. Gwen knew something was very wrong. She would not be getting off that phone. Good for you. Gwen. Mary Jo, Ted said, was in an accident. Was it in a car? It was an automobile accident, Ted said. Mary Jo was returning to take a ferry back to the mainland when the accident occurred. This language was too passive to offense. Gwen cut right to the point. Was her daughter dead? Gwen remembered nothing else other than screaming. Mary Jo's been killed. I'm alone here. Gwen's cries were so loud that she woke a neighbor who came in and found her in such hysteria that she smacked her in the face more than once. Gwen did not feel a thing. Mary Jo had lost her only child because of Ted Kennedy. Ted Kennedy gave Mary Jo's parents no details. They didn't know what Ted had been driving. His car, by the way. And all he cared about was them pulling out his car and make sure it was clean in 3 feet of water. Mary Jo did not drown. She suffocated to death at the top of that car for every last breath. And my breath is getting too angry right now. It's infuriating. I don't know who these men think they are. Oh, and by the way, Maureen Callahan, remember, one of the questions will be, who did she write this book for? The answer, inconvenient women everywhere. Oh, I've been an inconvenient woman once. Also, what did JFK Jr. hate to be called? A himbo, because he was a bimbo himbo. How did Carolyn Bessette stay thin? Oh, that would be Coca-Cola. Yeah. Oh, and what else? Jackie Kennedy. What disease did she have that prevented her from carrying a child to full term? Chlamydia. What was the girlfriend's name that JFK Jr. took in the kayak and almost killed her? Christine. Hi, Mom. How am I doing?
Great.
You think so? I'm sure trying. I'm trying to respect other people's societies, Mom.
Yes.
I try, Mom.
Yes, of course, we all do.
We all do, she says. I love you, Mom. And on that note, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
It is. And be kind to yourselves, for real.
And each other.
Well, I don't want to copy Ellen.